And welcome back here to the show. South Bronx Unite is an organization that is an all-volunteer coalition of South Bronx residents, organizations, and allies, all working together to improve and protect the social, environmental, as well as protecting economic future of the Mott Haven, Port Morris section of the South Bronx. Now, the area is surrounded by highways, fossil fuel power plants, waste transfer stations, subsidized diesel truck intensive facilities, and an 850-acre significant maritime industrial area, which is the largest in New York City. Now, in the South Bronx, there's about 49% of children who are living in poverty. Their asthma rate 8 times the national average, and they have the lowest rates per capita of access to green space. Joining us now to share a little bit more is the co-founder of South Bronx Unite. We have got Michael Johnson here with us. And Michael, good to have you.
Very good to be here, Daren. Thanks for inviting me.
Hey, good to have you as we talk about this issue of, really environmental justice. When we talk about environmental justice, we know right there in your area, South Bronx, a lot of traffic, and literally and figuratively a lot of traffic. But when it comes to the part of residents and the population, always adversely affected by this traffic. So give us a little bit about where we are today with the work that's going on in your organization, as well as where the community stands right now.
Well, thank you for that. That's a great question, and acknowledging the situation that exists here on the ground. We're shouldered by 2 major highways, the Major Deegan and the Bronx and Bruckner Expressway. And you mentioned that significant maritime industrial area. We have an intense concentration of traffic built from the built environment, where we're trying to do heavy diesel or heavy industrial facilities. We're trying to, handle the traffic flow going in and out of Manhattan and up to upstate New York, all traversing through this community. The community's effects of decades of environmental injustice has caused, like you mentioned, the highest rates of asthma, really high rates of obesity and diabetes, cardiovascular disease, all traveling on these highways. So what we've done, because it hasn't really been done before here in Mott Haven and Port Morris, we partnered with the Melbourne School of Public Health and did air quality monitoring and traffic counting in and around our community to determine the type of quantity we're dealing with on a daily basis, but also what is it doing to the air quality and how's it really affecting people who live here.
When we talk about living there, what's it been like? I mean, for someone who lives in that area, give us a bird's eye view of what it feels like living there with all the environmental concerns that you have.
We have a vibrant community. I mean, people have been struggling for decades to survive here through all the negative things that have happened from the top down. So, I mean, our children don't know why asthma is normalized, right? 1 in 4 of them have asthma. When you go to the schools and talk to our children, you ask that question, do you know someone who has asthma or do you have asthma yourself? 90% raise their hands. That should not be the situation. And I think, as adults, as parents, as residents who live here, we're like, enough. Something has to change. And the way we get changes through, we think, is through research. I mean, we all know there's a traffic issues here. We know it's been put upon us to handle the waste for the Bronx here in Mott Haven and Port Morris, to handle the fossil fuel power generation for the peaker stations that are lining our waterfront, to handling all these industrial sightings, because supposedly it's economic development and job creation, but it never has trickled down. All we have is the exhaust fumes from the vehicles. But it's not only that, there's other problems with the air quality. It's coming from the fuel we're burning in niche developments, the fumes coming from these industrial facilities. So it's a compound issue. It's a compound issue of also a non-mitigated flood zone that's our community sits in. And we're a peninsula community with no access to the waters that surrounds us. But what we do have is an unprotected waterfront that is going to see the next superstorms breach our shores, and all the things that are seeing in our peninsula and on our waterfront will inundate our community.
And when we talk about your community, we talk about the environmental impact. Let's talk about the community as a whole. You've got a lot of people who want to move into that community. You've got, even though with its present set of challenges, there are a lot of people who still want to come. Talks of gentrification, right? Not just talks, but we've seen people actually leave. I, for one, have always said on this show that I believe that the Bronx is being gentrified, particularly in that area. I've got a couple of people who we brought on the show. They don't call it gentrification, they call it progress. And so we respectfully disagree. But talk to us about, from your perspective, how do you see it? Do you equate it as gentrification, or do you equate it as being progress?
Definitely gentrification. It's fueled by real estate speculation. We fought initially to started off for the right to breathe, right? Now we're fighting for the right to stay. We know we can't tell people not to come and try to live here because this is a great community. I mean, it's one of the last communities in New York City that's one train stop away from Manhattan has not been gentrified, but now here it comes. We have these luxury high rises being built on our waterfront, but none of which are where people who live here currently can afford to stay. So what happens with real estate speculation does lead and bleed and breathe and fuel gentrification. So they're displacing people because income comes in that can afford to pay higher rents, which then these landlords start charging more rents and have displaces people who live here. So progress is not displacing folks. We're not saying, we should not have nice restaurants. We shouldn't have nice galleries or bookstores or places that we can go and recreate, meaning creating green space on our peninsula, which we don't have. We know those things are necessary for people who live here, who've suffered here, who's fought here for decades to make this community what it is. But our culture is what created this drive. They like what they see. They know, hell, we want to be a part of it. But don't displace us to be a part of what we created. And that's the problem. And that's why we looked at how can we stop gentrification and real estate speculation. And that led us to, which we haven't talked about, Daren, but our community came together and created and incorporated community land trusts to be that natural opposing force to real estate speculation. So when there's public space like our 850 acres of green space or peninsula that's public land that's not being used to provide a public benefit, we want to make sure we can identify publicly owned space that we can hold in perpetuity for the benefit of our community to stop the spread of gentrification and displacement.
Talk to us about the community trust. For somebody who doesn't know about it, give us a little bit more of an in-depth understanding as to what the community trust is, as viewers want to know more.
Yeah, a community land trust. There's several models around the Bronx, and around the city that are what they're trying to do is hold land, public land, in the ownership of the community land trust, which has a board made up of the community and also membership of made up the community. That takes that land out of the speculative real estate market and creates what the community land trust feels based on their membership, what's needed. That could be deeply affordable housing in perpetuity, like what's being done, say in Cooper Square downtown. We have 5 CLTs, community land trusts, right now in the Bronx, including ours, the Mott Haven, Port Morris Community Land Stewards. Some of which I could say are trying to create permanently affordable housing or deeply affordable housing. But we're also looking at how do we look at the green space, looking at what else we need. We need recreation. Our community has one park, but we have a peninsula that's unprotected, but there's space along our peninsula that can be green space, can be recreational opportunities to enhance quality of life. And also create some places like we're looking at a center that's owned by the city, that's been vacant since 2011, and we're trying to acquire it for the community land trust or get a long-term lease to create health, education, and the arts, which are some of the other things is vital to our successful attainment of quality of life.
So moving forward with the community trust, obviously you've got the plan laid forward. Talk to us about support from elected officials, from the powers that be. How receptive are they to the community trust?
The community land trust has been recognized by the city council, by the city of New York as a viable option for affordable housing creation, when it's owned by, with ground roots involvement of our community. The city council has recognized that we've received the 12 city community land trusts around the city have received city council discretionary funds for the last 2 years, trying to helping to fund the growth of this opportunity as a tool, not as a total solution, but as a tool of community self-determination and development from a community ground roots platform. So where we're heading now is trying to really inform the community of the benefits of it, where it's not owned by one entity, but owned collectively. And that we feel is the way forward. I mean, it started off in the 60s with Black farmers in the South, in Georgia, how they could own land communally to reduce some of their costs, but to have a greater stake in a larger platform of creating healthier options for their families and for the community. So there's a lot of examples from Dudley Street in Boston to Vermont, where Bernie Sanders helped create a community land trust there in Vermont, in California, all across the country. The land trusts are now coming up because of need and necessity of being that natural opposing force to real estate speculation and how we're able to fight to stay.
Yeah. Let's talk economics for a moment. When we talk about Mott Haven, the economic future of Mott Haven. Of course, that community trust would definitely do things to improve the economy in Mott Haven. For where you see the economy right now, give me your assessment. What do you feel about the economy in Mott Haven, and where would you see things going in the future?
What we're trying to do is change what's been happening for too long. Tax subsidies have been given to large, like deep pocket developers for creating supposed and affordable housing or creating job creation. They get hundreds of millions of dollars that come here to build their plants, to supposedly drive the economy. Again, it doesn't trickle down. So why don't you give that money, $100 million to say one entity like Fresh Direct? Why not give 100 businesses $1 million to create jobs? Then you see true change. So the way things have been done from the top down has to stop. It has to be for the people and by the people, and really engage in about what solutions look like and who knows best than the folks who live here. So if you're trying to benefit and create economic opportunity, talk to us. Talk to people in the community about what that looks like. And so make sure that it's sustainable, right? That it really is vibrant.
How frustrating is that? I didn't want to cut you off, but how frustrating is that? Because we know that many times when people do, and they talk about what's best for the community, many times it's people on the outside coming on the inside and telling and pretty much, quote unquote, dictating what goes on. Talk to me about your frustration there with people who may not necessarily have that landscape that you have.
Well, I think we've all been a part of that, where we have tried to let our voices be heard, but there's only been like a checking off of a box for participation instead of it being a part of the plan. Like the plan should start in the community, not where you come to us after it's been baked. And so what we're saying is it has to be like the Hearts Project we're coming up has been developed by visioning sessions, by actually coming to the community and we having come together and saying, what's the best use of a vacant 25,000 square foot building? Not where we say, this is what we're gonna do with it. No, it's all, what are some of the ideas of some of the things we need and what should we create with these opportunities? So the way we discuss it, the way it's been done in the past, we have to change that dynamic and not be also a perpetuator of how the top down stuff has been going on. So the ideas that we come up with have to come from us. Has to come from people being not only listened to, but their plans being implemented in the plan, making that the plan.
So how do you see things moving forward? I mean, 2021 is right here around the corner. What's the work like for you and the organization?
The most important part of community land trust is community. The most important part of community organizing is community. And it's the hardest thing to do. But we're going to do a general membership meeting after the first of the year. We're going to talk more about what the benefits of self-determination, learning from the past, but knowing that we can plot a different future together. As long as we listen to each other, as long as we can grow together. So it's going to be about the work, man, getting information out about what are the best ways of moving forward? What's the best ways to create the self-determination we need to survive? And how can we do it more effectively and efficiently?
And I want to jump in, just elaborate a little bit more on that waterfront plan, because a lot of people aren't familiar with the waterfront plan, but it's huge and it's a game changer. So for somebody who doesn't know about the waterfront plan, educate us.
Oh man, thank you for that question. Excuse me. We look at the problems, and that was a problem. The problem of not getting 90,000 people to the waters that surround us, that our children don't even know we have a waterfront because of all the man-made impediments, but it's public land. So what we did was we identified through asset mapping 7 different sites along our peninsula that are underutilized, are either vacant, not being used, or underutilized. So we said, let's create a waterfront plan of seeing how we can activate these sites. So we went to the state Department of Environmental Conservation and got this plan prioritized. Never before has there been a waterfront plan prioritized for this community. It's been prioritized since 2014. It's time to activate it. And that's something, of course, as well, would be under the envelope of the community land trust. So it can't be of the whim of a governor or a mayor turned into public housing or housing period. That's not really affordable housing for people who live here. So the vital need for for green space, because of the low quality of green space per capita for our residents, we need to create our own solutions. That's why the community garden coalition was so strong. Out of necessity, we created community gardens in the Bronx. And that's why they're really nucleus of our communities. We need to create more of those types of spaces, especially where we can create recreation, but also flood mitigation. Because we were expecting the storm to be the next superstorm or hurricane or what have you that will inundate our communities. And now it turned out to be COVID. And that's why our fight for environmental justice, going back to that conversation, is important to do all these things around health, because we've seen how our fight for environmental justice was only the Band-Aid that was pulled off by COVID. That the harms have been done to us for decades only made us more susceptible to this virus. Not only getting the virus, but dying from this virus. And you can see the Bronx has led the way with COVID infections and mortalities because of our environmental situations that exist. And so that's why the mission is circular about what we're trying to do here in terms of better health, better quality of life, access to recreation, increasing our ability to be sustainable as a people and not be susceptible to the next pandemic or superstorm. Because we will be served less or last. You know, it's always been the communities of color on the lower level, on the lower scale of the economic ladder that are always last. And we got to change that dynamic.
Yeah. Excited about 2021?
I am, man. I mean, we're going to get through this virus. We're going to survive. We're going to thrive. And I think we're going to be stronger. I mean, I read something in my son, who's 5 years old, his book. It said, a tree that weathers a storm grows deeper roots. And that's powerful, man. We've always weathered the storm. We've come from a people who've been enslaved for 400 years, right? We come from a lot of injustices, and it's only made us stronger. You know, it looks like we haven't, but we are here. We're survivors, and we'll continue to survive. And so, and we're going to strive. We're going to get stronger and grow deeper roots because of it.
Well, we're rooted together in this thing. So thank you so much, Michael, for being with us here. Best wishes to you, the work that you guys are doing. And we hope that 2021 turns out to be much better for all of us here.
I agree. And we're going to make it better. Thank you, brother.
Thank you so much for being with us.